So I have finished the Arrancar arc. The massive battle with Aizen is in the rearview mirror. The conflict that has been kind of happening secretly since the beginning of the series, but more overtly through the last few hundred chapters, is now over. The big bad villain is defeated, and our hero sacrificed his own power to do it. That alone could have been quite an ending to the series. Ichigo embracing his various states of being as both human and Soul Reaper to attain the ultimate power and save the day at the cost of everything, returning to a life of normalcy. It would have been a really bittersweet conclusion to Bleach, but Bleach is not over. No, there are still so many mysteries and possibilities left. I, as a first-time reader and watcher, have just come to a new beginning, and that's always an exciting and sometimes nerve-wracking place to be. When a long-running plotline reaches a climax and then moves on to a new phase rather than actually end, I think it's always important to have a bit of a cool-down period, sometimes even a soft reset in a way, to give itself and its audience a chance to breathe and recalibrate for whatever is coming next. After having gone through such high stakes and epic events, it's a chance to re-establish characters in a new place and to prepare them for a new direction in the story. I think that's really important, and I think this is what some have really struggled with when Marvel, for instance, Marvel shows and movies seemed so low stakes for a bit after Infinity War and Endgame, but I personally thought a period of dealing with the aftermath and showing the new eras for our heroes in that fallout was important. Hell, I think we could have used a bit more of that before diving headfirst into multiverse shenanigans with the new big arc of Marvel. There's also the show Supernatural, for instance, a series that finished its initial story arc that built for the first 5 years. The story organically grew from two brothers that were hunting monsters and other supernatural beings in the world into eventually averting the actual apocalypse and stopping the literal devil. After seeing such growth and reaching this, ultimate boiling point, it was important to dial back the stakes for a bit while building the groundwork for something new. The Majin Buu saga in Dragon Ball Z is another example of this. We got this massive battle with Cell, the death of Goku, and Gohan's long-awaited ascension. Dragon Ball could have ended there, and it would have been a satisfying conclusion. Instead, we got a big time jump and Gohan pulling a Spider-Man while going to school and being a superhero to stop small-time criminals for a while. It was a big de-escalation, even making it seem like we were just getting the relatively small stakes of a new martial arts tournament before introducing us slowly to the series' biggest threat yet. While the Buu saga isn't my favorite, I'm a big Android saga person myself, the slow burn start of it was very necessary. These examples aren't always successful. Sometimes they don't give us enough time to develop the new direction, or sometimes the new era of storytelling just doesn't live up to what the story had built up to before, where we sometimes end up thinking that the story could have ended and maybe should have ended. And now, as we move on from what has been our primary enemy and our primary problem, and Ichigo goes back to a quiet life, one that's now even quieter than ever, Bleach is faced with the same challenge. Where do we go from here? And how do we continue on in a way that's fresh and new without the same conflicts that have mostly been resolved? What parts of this universe can we explore without losing sight of what made the story great to begin with? How do you recapture or maintain the interest of the audience with a whole new plot when the one before was so satisfying? That's not to say that everything was completely tied up in a nice bow at the end of the Arrancar arc. There were still plenty of unanswered questions and avenues to potentially explore, despite the main threat being dealt with. Not to mention, our protagonist was left in such an interesting position. So let's get into the direction that Tite Kubo has decided to take us in this new era of Bleach. Because I am so excited to talk about this. Like I said, this is a new beginning in a way, and I love that these chapters are very intentionally designed to be a fresh start for the series, to reflect that Ichigo in some ways has kind of been forced back into a similar position that he was in at the beginning, and he's having to struggle to reacclimate to being normal. Hell, he's more normal than ever now that he can't even see ghosts. The visual callbacks and the parallels that Kubo showed were wonderful, and really drove home some of these ideas that Ichigo is almost back to where he began, in some ways even further back, and I'm sure it feels that way to him. At the beginning of chapter 1, he didn't know what a Soul Reaper was. He didn't know the power he would have to truly protect people, or the difference he could make in the world. But this time, he knows that. He knows what he's lost. We are thrown 17 months into the future. Over a year since Aizen's defeat. This isn't the most severe time jump I've ever experienced, but it's a good enough gap to not only see the differences on the page, but enough of one to cause me to wonder what else in this universe might have changed in that time. What's the Soul Society up to right now? Do we have replacement captains yet? Has Grimmjow finally become the king of Hueco Mundo, or did Haribel hold on to her new reign? Is there a hollow civil war going on? How is Aizen doing now that he's served a tiny fraction of his extremely long prison sentence? We don't know the answers to these things right now, and that's okay, but it's just interesting to know that time has passed. This universe has gone on unseen by us readers. So it's gonna be fun, hopefully in the future, to get some of those answers and to see how this world has evolved some more. But for now, we're focused solely on the living world. Normalcy. Ichigo is back to normalcy. And with normalcy comes less Soul Reapers fighting Hollows and less Soul Reapers fighting each other. Instead of all of that, we're getting Ichigo joining the soccer team. Just like how the regular world is compared to the magical, mystical, paranormal world that Ichigo has been used to throughout the series, things are slowing down. After having a rescue arc and a war arc and all these different exciting things, I think Bleach handles this slowing down really well. It's not afraid to take its time and kind of build something new with the leftovers of what came before. And it's fun to kind of get back to the smaller feeling, you know, that we're in the city, we're in the living world. It reminds me a bit of the beginning of the chapter Black arc in Yu Yu Hakusho, where after you've gone through this crazy ordeal, you're kind of just back to routine. And that can be so interesting in its own ways. We get to see Ichigo and his classmates back at school. I love that this is their senior year, which naturally puts these characters in a mindset of what comes next, or what am I doing with my life, worrying about their futures and their careers, while Ichigo is someone that had a job and a purpose that was so far beyond high school, but now that's gone, and his prospects otherwise aren't looking fantastic. He's got a job with a pretty hilarious boss, but it's a far cry from what he used to do. And it being an odd jobs thing, where he's doing all of these different tasks for different people, just kind of emphasizes how lost he is, while also still showing that he wants to help other people. You know, he hasn't quite found his place again yet, after losing everything that had made him him. It's also kind of nice that all of his friends are in on the truth of their world now. It just makes it easier for Ichigo to have conversations with them, where he doesn't have to hide that part of him anymore. And some of those friends were growing more spiritually aware anyway. Hell, they're more spiritually in tune right now than he is, probably. So I hope they've developed those powers a bit, but maybe there hasn't been reason to. But yeah, I actually really liked his boss. I think she's hilarious, and it's important to have at least one character that's not completely in the know about Ichigo now. But knowing Kubo, this woman could be some secret puppet master. She already knows how to change her personality when she changes her clothes, just like Aizen. Hell, maybe her kid is the next big bad. I'm joking. Maybe. Ichigo is doing his best to move on and not let things bother him. Rukia hasn't shown up at all. She could though, right? Like technically, like in a Gigai. But yeah, she's not assigned to be near Karakura Town, so she's not around at all. And you can feel how much Ichigo really misses her. She was such an important part of his life, and now she's just gone. One of the interesting new developments is that Uryu has kind of been taking point hunting down Hollows in Ichigo's absence. But but Ichigo's hoping that he doesn't do it so much that he draws the Soul Society's attention, which is a nice reminder that as a Quincy, Uryu is kind of an enemy of Soul Society, and they don't like how the Quincy handle Hollows. So these poor Hollows, though, I must say, that are acting up right now, usually they would have just gotten purified by a Zanpakuto, but now they're actually getting destroyed by a Quincy arrow, so that's just unfortunate timing. I'm sorry to say. Someone did ask me once, I think it was in a Q&A, who I would want as a main character if it wasn't Ichigo, and I answered Uryu, and this was kind of cool to think about in that way for me. Like, the early hunting Hollow parts of Bleach is now Uryu's responsibility while Ichigo is one of his normal classmates. We're just not following those adventures, but that's how I was picturing it. Uryu is protecting the city, just like Ichigo used to do in the early chapters. We also get some classic bullies being a problem that Ichigo and Uryu easily deal with, obviously. They're the kind of bullies you would have expected Kuwabara from Yu Yu Hakusho to be a part of. Like, "You're a Meshi! I mean, Kurosaki! This isn't a Zanpa whatever. No, this is my spirit sword!" I had to do that. I have to. I can't talk about Kuwabara and not do a Kuwabara impression. It's worth noting that with a time skip like this, that isn't like a huge chunk of time, the characters don't look that different so far. Like, yeah, some hairstyles are different, like Tatsuki's hair growing out, but the biggest obvious physical changes come from the youngest characters. Whether it's Ichigo's sisters or Urahara's workers, the kids of Bleach are starting to grow up a bit, and Karin also seems to be getting more involved in the supernatural, which makes sense. She already showed that plenty of times, that she was more spiritually aware than a lot of other people, and now she's the one dealing with lingering ghosts while Ichigo doesn't even know that they're there, which I kind of love. I kind of love that that's kind of been reversed. Her going to Urahara is interesting, and I thought her reasoning was sweet. Wanting to protect Ichigo since he's used to protect all of them. Like, that's just a really nice thing to do for Ichigo. And a nice acknowledgement of the kind of person that he's always been. I do wonder if this will lead toward Karin taking on a more active role in the story. Since she's Ishin's daughter, maybe there's potential for her to become a Soul Reaper down the line. Yuzu, on the other hand, she seems as normal as ever, really. She's just kind of being a tween girl. She's just normal. Maybe she takes more after their mom. She looks more like Masaki than Karin does. Karin definitely takes after Ishin. So yeah, maybe that's it. It just doesn't seem like her spiritual awareness has grown whatsoever. One lingering question that I especially had while reading was the whereabouts of Kon. I haven't seen him in forever. Like since before Waco Mundo, I think. It made sense he wasn't around when we were off in other dimensions or in the middle of a war, but he was conspicuously absent here since usually he hung out in Ichigo's room. But it really got me thinking, now that Ichigo is powerless completely, would he even be able to hear or see a mod soul like Kon? Like, I'm sure he'd still be able to see a stuffed animal running around on its own, right? I don't know. But yeah, Kon's nowhere to be found, which also got me thinking about whether or not he was taken with the rest of Karakura Town when it got sent to Soul Society. But with everyone back now, I would think he would have been sent back too. But I am a little nervous since originally, way back, he was a defective mod soul that was supposed to be exterminated, and I'm a little nervous for him. I really like Kon, and I loved when the Fade to Black movie used him more, but it's wild that I haven't seen him for so long now. Maybe this will be a big plot point that he's not here during this period, but I'd just like to know where he actually ended up for my own peace of mind. Where's Kon at? Is Kon alright? But enough about the old residents of Karakura Town, because we've got some definite new faces around. We meet a mysterious stranger named Ginjo, and when I first saw him, I thought, I recognize him, and you might be thinking, no you don't, you've never met him before. And while I never met him, I have seen him before. Many, 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 many times. So I watched the anime on Hulu, and the image for Bleach when you pull it up is this. So there's Ginjo right next to Ichigo, and I've seen him every time I've turned on Bleach. When I first started watching, I thought he was going to be some major character in the series, considering he's on the series title screen on streaming. But then he just never showed up until now. I suppose it's because this Lost Agent arc is apparently the last arc from the original anime, so it was just probably something from the most recent part of the series that they wanted to use. Still, there's something cathartic about finally meeting him and being able to put a name and a character to the face that I've seen so many times. That's crazy. I saw him, I was like, hey, it's you! But as for the character himself, he's definitely very interesting. For one thing, he's got a Soul Reaper badge in his bag, so since this arc is called The Lost Agent, is he a former Soul Reaper like Ichigo? Was he a substitute? Someone that for whatever reason gave up his Soul Reaper powers or lost them, or maybe he was like fired from the position. He certainly knows a hell of a lot. Maybe he's someone that used to work with Isshin, or at least knows the truth about Isshin, because he first shows up asking about Isshin's backstory. My man, that's what I'm asking for too. I want to know Isshin's backstory. So you've come to the right place. I will support you in this venture. I don't care what Ichigo says or what anyone says. We will find out Isshin's backstory together. Like, I want to know Isshin's backstory too, so badly. But Ginjo may actually already know much more than I do, because he points out that Ichigo might not know all that much about his own father and his family, and frankly, yeah, Ichigo's had over a year to find out about Isshin's past, but unfortunately, Isshin must not have had much of a desire to actually share it, and since Ichigo wanted to let him tell him in his own time, we still don't know. So thanks, Ichigo. You could have just had him tell you right then and there. I would have been so riveted, but instead, you and me are both in the dark. But maybe Ginjo will save us. He's gonna tell us what's going on. Wait, so I'm sitting here thinking maybe this guy is a substitute Soul Reaper, and I'm thinking maybe Isshin was the one that turned him into a Soul Reaper a while ago. Maybe that's where Isshin's powers went when he was living on Earth, and maybe when he got his powers back, he had to take them from Ginjo, or something. Maybe it's something like that, but it's very suspicious that this guy seems like he knows all about Isshin. And remember, Rukia, when she gave Ichigo her powers, she was essentially human. So if Isshin gave Ginjo his powers when he came to Earth, maybe. I don't know how the ages would line up. Maybe there's some slowing down or something going on. I don't know. But that's a theory that's rolling around in my head right now. So maybe Ginjo is the Lost Agent, or the Lost Agent could just be referring to Isshin. I feel like I'm reading way too much into it. Anyway, I'm not sure if Ginjo's a new ally or a new enemy yet. On the one hand, he seems pretty cool and friendly, but a little too friendly, and obviously there's a reason to be a little sus of him. He obviously knew who Ichigo was to begin with, and that Isshin was his dad, and all his talk about coincidences was nonsense, but I actually found those moments to be a little funny and endearing. Instead of feeling directly threatening, he's just so nonchalant about the whole thing. I'm very interested to see what he actually wants. And we get the first hints of a new group of characters, and if there's one thing I love about Bleach, it's when Kubo brings in a group. Show me the group picture. Show me those wonderful individual designs all standing beside one another. I'm ready. The new arrivals that we do see briefly look great. The young lady looks like one of the characters I married in Fire Emblem Three Houses once, and her personality is immediately made very clear. While the other guy... Führer King Bradley? Yeah, these two seem interesting. Their presence is being used in the same way that Byakuya and Renji, or Hiyori and Shinji, or hell, even Ukiura and Yami were used. Heralds and harbingers of something larger going on, happening just out of our sight, but maybe on the horizon. The ones arriving to bring a whole new part of the story. I don't know what they want with Ichigo, but Kubo does a great job of presenting the possible threat they pose, without actually having them do anything overtly threatening so far. It's the knowledge that they have, and the knowledge that we don't, that makes them a little worrisome. How do they know all of this? Who are they? I can't wait to find out. And, maybe most interestingly, We get hints that Ichigo may still be giving off some spiritual pressure, so maybe his abilities aren't actually completely gone. Maybe they were just dormant, or he drained most of it away against Aizen and it just needs time to recover. I don't know, but there's a small bit of underlying hope, and I appreciate how the people in his life are treating him too. They know how hard this must be for him, and they also recognize how much he's done for them, so are just being exceptionally supportive and kind during a very difficult period. Ichigo knows how dangerous this world really is. He knows about all the unseen things that he can no longer see, and yet he's just got to try to live a normal life. He's got to go to school, he's going to deal with bullies, he's going to go to work, and he knows there's hollows running around the city eating people, and he wouldn't be able to see one if it was behind him. Like, that's crazy. Like, that's a really big change, and a scary change, and I feel really bad for him, so I'm glad his friends are keeping him close. It's just such a personal issue. It's something I'm glad that Ichigo's having to deal with. I like having to see him in this vulnerable state to see how he deals with it. And so far, he's doing his best to live a normal life, but I'm curious to see as things change, how he's gonna adapt. I really respect Kubo reeling things back and kind of adjusting the focus to be very local and small scale to start. He spent the last couple arcs introducing dozens of new characters, abilities, settings, backstories, and at least so far, he hasn't given into the urge to revisit any of those things right now. This kind of restraint is even more important with where he's taken the story, because the reader's not seeing those characters, not seeing the other Soul Reapers, or seeing what they're up to, just helps us connect even more with Ichigo. It's like we lost the supernatural world with him, and we are dealing with them no longer being around, just like he is. They are off somewhere, unseen, we have no idea what's going on over there, they could all be dead, Aizen could have broken out of prison, they could all be dead or under hypnosis, we don't know. We are just as in the dark as Ichigo about that, and we feel that with him. The closest we do get is a weird dream where you see like Rukia and Renji's silhouettes, but Ichigo forgets it seconds after he wakes up because it was a dream. But maybe they're trying to get in touch with him somehow? But yeah, that's as much as we touch on the Soul Society, and that's a good thing for the time being. I think that's a really good thing for this part of the story. These chapters are all rightfully very focused on Ichigo and the people in his immediate orbit in the living world. This feels more intimate in a lot of ways, similar to early Bleach, where we were with Ichigo on his day-to-day and overcoming the obstacles that showed up in his life, rather than going on the larger quests we've undertaken these past few arcs. It's scaled back in scope, but I'd argue that there's never been a greater sense of intrigue layered over the story, because I'm slowly getting the sense that whatever new problem we're about to deal with is creeping up on Ichigo and the other residents of Karakura Town, and that feeling of impending danger is manifested in physical form with what happens to one of our heroes, when Uryu is attacked by a strange guy reading a book while jumping around on rooftops. It's very sudden and caught me off guard, but the way it went down made one thing clear. We are dealing with something unfamiliar and new, and that's exactly what I wanted. Ladies and gentlemen, we have our inciting incident that's going to propel us forward. Do I think Uryu is dead? No, but the implications of the suddenness and the severity of the attack are definitely going to be felt. I think that this is exactly what Ichigo is going to need to want to get back into the action. And he's got this weird business card that Ginjo gave him that might help him do just that. I don't know what execution is, but the name sounds obviously a little concerning and also sounds like a 90s X-Men comic. But hopefully, whatever it is, will be a good thing for Ichigo and his new life. That's it for these chapters, but this was such a compelling beginning to this new story arc. I absolutely loved it. It was such a nice change of pace from what Bleach has been for a while, as we had some really great character building and the establishing of new factors in all of this. Did this introduction manage to hold on to the spark of the series and carry it into new territory? I definitely think so. There's a very careful story being laid out here, and I'm hopeful that this foundation is going to have something really awesome built on top of it. Something that's new and designed unlike anything we've had in the series so far. That's how it seems to me just from how this is all starting out. We're in the midst of mounting intrigue and a mystery that I am excited to start to solve. We may not have a Zanpakuto or Soul Reaper robes, but I'm all in for wherever we go from here. As always, thanks so much for watching. Please comment, like, subscribe. If you want to support the channel a little bit more, you're welcome to become a member. Really appreciate it. This was a very interesting start, and I can't wait to read more. We'll discuss it then. Hope everyone has a great day. Take care. Bye.